The change is already happening, gang. We are in the middle of a global shift. Now, I break it all down in my most important book yet, America Awaken. Go to americaawaken.us and get early access now. Picture this. You're planning the biggest anti-Trump resistance movement since the Women's March. You got Hollywood celebrities, progressive politicians, and millions of dollars behind you. And somehow you managed to stage a No Kings protest rally in London, England. Yeah, you heard that right. They literally protested no kings in a country that actually has kings. Now, if that doesn't perfectly sum up the intelligence level of Saturday's No Kings Day protest, I don't know what does. Stick around, because what happened on June 14th wasn't just embarrassing. It was a masterclass in how the left continues to shoot itself in the foot while claiming to save democracy. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to give you the information you need to rise up above and beyond the lying legacy media. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, have you noticed that every time Trump's name surges in the headlines, gold goes with it? It happened the day he took office, and it's still going up. Gold doesn't just like Trump, it loves him. It rallies around him. Now, if you bought gold the day he became president, you'd be up almost $400 an ounce by now. It's really no surprise. Under Trump's first term, the price of gold soared a staggering 53%. He's even talked about the U.S. going back to a gold standard. Here's the thing. Gold has been used as a store of value for centuries. The government can't easily manipulate it, and it's known as a hedge against market risk and inflation. How high will the price of gold go under Trump's second term? Will gold continue to break record after record in 2025 and beyond? We'll learn more about the benefits of precious metals like gold and silver with your very own free copy of the Gold and Silver Kit sent directly to your doorstep. You'll even learn about an IRS loophole that allows you to diversify your savings with gold and silver completely tax and penalty free. So don't wait a second longer. Click that link below and get your hands on your free copy of this kit and start your gold and silver journey today. Let's start with the most delicious irony of all. Now, while these protesters were screaming out, "No kings! No kings!" and claiming Trump is some sort of dictator, guess what was happening in the Hamptons? Alex Soros, yes, George Soros' son, was getting married to Huma Abedin in what the New York Times literally called a, quote, American royal wedding. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up, gang. On the very day they're protesting against supposed royalty, the liberal elite are literally throwing themselves a royal wedding complete with the Clintons and Kamala Harris in attendance. The cognitive dissonance is stunning. These are the same people who think Trump having a military parade makes him a king, but apparently having a wedding that the mainstream media calls royal is perfectly fine with these people. And it really all just went downhill from there. Let's talk numbers, because this is where it gets really embarrassing for the left. The organizers are claiming that they had over 5 million participants nationwide. But when you actually look at the footage, it tells a completely different story. So, for example, in Bloomington, Illinois, organizers had to literally tweet, "More crowded than it appears," because their own photos and videos showed how pathetically small their crowd was. Now, needless to say, when you're making excuses for your crowd side and your own promotional material, let's just say things aren't going very well. And of course, there were several Florida scheduled No Kings protests that were all canceled because of lack of interest. Even more telling is what happened with Trump's military parade versus these protests. While the left was desperately trying to counter-program against Trump's 250th Army anniversary celebration, which was awesome, Trump's event drew extraordinary crowds. All the while, the far left protests looked more like neighborhood block parties. Now, of course, the legacy media desperately tried to spin this as a victory for the protesters. But once again, like with the fiery but mostly peaceful protests in LA, you can't gaslight the optics. The optics told the real story over the legacy media spin. Speaking of, here's where the peaceful protest narrative completely fell apart over the weekend in Salt Lake City. I'm sure you saw this. A No Kings protester actually at one point took out an AR-15 style rifle, which prompted members of the event's peacekeeping group to actually they opened fire on him, accidentally killing an innocent bystander. And that violence wasn't isolated. In Seattle, Antifa militants set up anti-ICE blockades, they set fires in the streets, and violently assaulted a journalist by the name of Cam Higbee, punching him in the back of the head, kicking him and the like. Again, there could not have been a more stark contrast with the regalia and the honor and the celebration that marked the military parade in D.C. Of course, in L.A., protesters threw rocks, bricks, bottles, and commercial-grade fireworks at law enforcement officers. In New York City, at least 10 people were arrested as protesters waved upside-down American flags and Palestinian flags. In Portland, violent mobs stormed an ICE facility, launching fireworks and smoke grenades at federal officers. And among the more subdued protesters, you had people like this.
I'm just so scared. I'm 74 years old. I worry about everything, and I just am so scared and upset, and I don't understand why people did and voted for this person.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is your brain on MSNBC for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what happened. That is literally the kind of creature that the legacy media creates. So fascinating that someone who claims to be standing up for democracy has such contempt for who the voters overwhelmingly voted for. Ironic. Now, of course, no left-wing protests would be complete without your obligatory Hollywood turnout, which was particularly pathetic and revealing. You had the mentally deranged Mark Ruffalo showing up, claiming Trump was a king and a dictator. He's like Kim Jong-un. He was like Vladimir Putin, completely missing the irony that were Trump actually a dictator, Ruffalo wouldn't be allowed to protest at all. Yeah, John Cryer, yeah, Jimmy Kimmel, speaking of crying, and a number of other washed-up liberals showing up to virtue signal to their shrinking liberal audience. Again, remember, these are the same celebrities who live in gated communities and have private security, all the while lecturing regular Americans about democracy. Perhaps the most telling moment came from Congressman Jamie Raskin's speech in Philadelphia, in my backyard here. On Flag Day, the day we celebrate the American flag, Raskin chose to speak in front of a prominently placed pride flag instead of the American flag. And the optics were so bad that his own social media post, it got over 11,000 replies mocking the choice. So this perfectly encapsulates the left's priorities on a day meant to honor our nation's symbol, the symbol that is civic nationalism at its core, to brings all the diverse members of the American population together in a single unity. Instead, this Democrat chose to prioritize his woke ideology. And there were a number of former Democrats who were commenting on X that this image perfectly embodies why tens of thousands have chosen to hashtag walk away. Brandon Straka, God bless him, hashtag walk away from the party. Moreover, the timing of these protests simply could not have been worse for Democrats. As many of you know, while they were out there claiming Trump is a threat to democracy, an actual politically motivated assassin named Vance Luther Bolter was on a killing spree in Minnesota, murdering Democratic state lawmakers that had previously voted against Democrat legislation. So this suspect was literally appointed to Governor Tim Walz's Workforce Development Board, creating a massive embarrassment, obviously, for this feckless Democrat governor. So while Democrats were staging theatrical protests about imaginary threats to democracy, real political violence was happening in their own backyard by someone connected to their own administration. But finally, nothing, and I do mean nothing, tops the sheer stupidity of staging anti-Trump No Kings protests in London, England. Now, I mean, just think about this for a second. I mean, they organized a protest against American kings in a country that literally has an actual king. I mean, the cognitive dissonance is so extreme, it's almost impressive. It's why they had to rename the protest the No Tyrants protest, because, look, I just think most people see through it. And I gotta say, I think that perfectly summed up the entire No Kings movement over the weekend. A bunch of people so blinded by their TDS, their Trump derangement syndrome, that they can't even figure out what country they're protesting in. At the end of the day, the No Kings protests accomplish exactly the opposite of what they intended. Instead of showing unified resistance to Trump, they showed a fractured, violent, and increasingly desperate opposition that can't even organize a coherent message. They managed to stage protests that were simultaneously boring and violent. They claimed massive numbers while producing pathetic visuals, and they literally protested in foreign countries while claiming to defend American democracy. Meanwhile, Trump got exactly what he wanted. Wall-to-wall coverage of his military parade, contrast footage showing the left's extremism, and proof that his opponents are more interested in theater than in governing. The No Kings protests were not a show of strength. They were a political suicide note written in crayon. And frankly, as a conservative, I couldn't be happier about it. Keep it up, Democrats. 2026 is going to be a bloodbath.